Now before we go on to this presentation, somehow our meetings, the research meetings, tend to be very sad and morose for some reason. I don't know. There is no interaction. People are just sitting silently with a very serious face. Nobody is clapping. So before we go on, let's have a cheer for all of us here. We are sitting here since morning, and to the organizers as well as to all of us, because we've done a very good job at not only making these presentations but running this meeting as well and making it see the light of the day despite all odds. Right, so when Hitesh asked me to do this talk on what would be a good PowerPoint presentation, I was actually wondering, why does he want that? Because I believe that good essentially is the enemy of great. So today probably my tips and tricks, or trials rather, is about trying to make that leap of faith from going from good to great. And this has been a learning experience. It's not that we are born presenters, we are born publishers, we are born researchers. But over a period of time, at least in the last 15 years, I'm going to try and assimilate what I have learned and put it to you. If you like it, well and good. If you don't, you can always give your comments, your questions, everything is welcome. Now, essentially making a good presentation is never about beating competition. Please remember that. It's never about the other people sitting in that row who are going to compete with you. It is essentially about competing against your previous best. And the moment this thought process comes in your mind, you have already won. Believe me, this is what happens at the highest level. And if you don't believe me today, you will in the future when you stand on the dais and you are competing against your previous best, not against the other people. And this gives you this mental calm, this mental confidence to go ahead. Now, essentially, a good presentation has three parts: the input, the process, and the result. Input essentially is the planning. So before you put it on the PowerPoint or the keynote, you should actually have it not only in mind, but also on paper. We always feel, most of us, rather I do, that I fall in the bell curve of average students. And when I'm going to present, there are probably going to be people who are going to be better than me. But actually, there are no bell curves for high performance people. Never. Essentially, it's about people who are going to think outside the box. What are champions made of? The only thing which differentiates champions from others is the lucidity of their thought process. And the more clearly you can think, the better is going to be a presentation. Now, this is a graphical representation of the process of a mind map. And what does this look like to you? Doesn't this look like a jumbled up slideshow? So the idea of making a PowerPoint simple is to have a slideshow which is simplified from the matter which comes into your mind. It's about uncomplicating. So the first thing you need for it is an extensively written detailed manuscript printed in your hand. Not only on your computer, but printed in your hand. And unless you have that, I sincerely believe that you cannot make a good presentation. The second thing which you should have is exhaustively searched literature references, again printed with you. Because once they are in the computer, it is very difficult to switch screens, from here and there. So better to have all the references printed with you. And the third thing is to have a comprehensive Excel sheet. What are the advantages of having a comprehensive Excel sheet? The first thing you need to do when you have an Excel sheet and we are making a presentation is that you should color code it. And simplify, if you have an Excel sheet like this which is very complicated, and the moment you color code, there are multiple advantages. The first is you can find data very simply, you can apply formulas, you can make tables which is very simplified, you can construct diagrams, and all these things are extremely simplified. The next thing essentially is actually making the PowerPoint, which is the process or the execution. Now the first thing which you have to have here is an attention-seeking title. Extremely important. The slide, which is your title, should say, "Look at me." Don't look at the previous guy, don't look at the next guy, but look at me. And that is what is most important. You have to attach taglines. Now Amul, all of us know, but what is the tagline of Amul? It is essentially utterly butterly delicious. So tagline can actually make your presentation stand out from those who are presenting before or after you. Many a times a picture can speak 1,000 words, and a relevant picture can probably speak 10,000 words. We know this is something which is happening in our country today, and probably putting him on the slideshow will catch attention of most of you all, if not all. The next thing and the biggest mistake which people do is choosing the slide template. Look at this color. It is repellent, it will repel the moment. So you have to avoid loud colors. What is the problem with this? You can hardly read this slide, right? Dull backgrounds, terrible. This slide, templates with background pictures, always to be avoided, ever, always. What is the problem with this slide? There is so much of design on this slide that you can hardly write here. So what is the point in using this slide? So essentially all these mistakes have to be avoided. What about choosing slide backgrounds and foregrounds? Look at this. Terrible contrast, no contrast. I mean, it may look very good on your computer, but imagine when you're presenting this in a big conference, how is it going to look like? It's going to look terrible. Look at this. Contrast colors in the same slide. Again, it's not very good for the eyes, and it is again going to repel people from your presentation. Look at this, background colors, the rainbow. Distracting completely. You're not going to read the text at all. This is essentially what you should. The best is a black background with these colors, or you can have a white background with dark colors. If you use a dark background with dark colors, nobody's going to read the slide. White background, it's not going to project well, and it's going to be a problem. Learning contrast is a matter of permutations and combinations, and you actually have to attend conferences, see other people presenting, learn from your own mistakes, and eventually you will get there. Choosing fonts, extremely important. Standard fonts, these are the ones which I have written. You have alternatives for them, and you can choose either one of them. These are the safe fonts, means these will look very safe when you are making your presentations, and they will not kind of be difficult or jumbled up to read. There are certain stylish fonts which are available, which you can use once in a while, especially if you're working in an informal meeting. But in a formal meeting, it's better to use formal fonts. There are certain artistic fonts which you can use, which are available both in the PowerPoint as well as the keynote, and you can use some of them when you're making presentations. You have to have your text which is large enough, and there is a dictum to this. Your title has to be 96 points, authors 48, headings 36, and text has to be at least 24. If it's less than 24, the guy sitting at the end, especially if you have a single screen, is going to find it very, very difficult to read your slide. So now you are losing out there, and hence this is essentially the dictum we follow. What about slide layouts? You have to be minimalistic. Never have busy slides, because busy slides are probably the biggest deterrent factor to somebody reading them and you getting rated or marked. They have to be well spaced out. See to it that you don't put more than 3 sentences on each slide. They have to be well structured. If you want to give a message in a slide, structure it in a way where people can actually understand, comprehend what you're trying to say. So the slide has to be very well structured. Inserting media. Now this is probably the Waterloo for many people. The first thing is disclosing patient's identity, and this is what happens on regular basis wherein the patient's identity is put. So this is something which you have to avoid. Yes, there are many other things which you have to do, but this is important, especially when you're putting up x-rays. The next thing is that the background objects. Now here you can see this phone which is there. It can be seen in the background. Now this is a cardinal mistake. This is something which you need to avoid. Cropping pictures. Now this is a picture which was put in a slideshow, in a presentation, and you can actually see the viewing box and one of those holders of the x-ray there. So this is not to be done. So you don't really nowadays don't need to actually go to a photo editor and do it. You can actually do it in the PowerPoint or in the keynote. So in the keynote, all you have to do is select the picture, then you can actually crop the picture to the way you want it, and finally this is what the picture looks like. So you don't now have to actually edit it in Photos or in any of your photo editors. You can do it either in PowerPoint or in keynote very, very easily. You have to have optimal brightness and contrast, and this also can be adjusted in PowerPoint and keynote. And the way to do it is basically format your picture, select it, and then you can adjust brightness. Everything can be done in PowerPoint itself. So you don't have to go beyond PowerPoint, at least for your basic editing. What about videos? This has basically caused and costed a lot of people, a lot of value. People have lost awards, medals, their first, their first prize because their videos didn't work. And this we see on a very regular basis. It happens in all conferences. So there are 2 things which you can do which will prevent this from happening. The first is try and insert the media. Don't copy paste. Many a times we copy paste without thinking. Try and insert the media so that the file actually gets embedded inside. So there is this thing where in PowerPoint you can actually insert the media. So don't copy paste. Unlike a picture which you can copy paste, never copy paste a video. Insert it always. Save your presentation as a PPTX. That is a larger file but always embedded. Videos will work for sure. Especially when in a competitive session, always. Or you make it in a keynote format. The moment you make it in a keynote format, all your videos are there. And whatever said and done, they are going to play. So one more, if I can go on the sidelines and tell you, especially for the younger generation, if you are contemplating which laptop to use, which system to use, we would all recommend MacBooks. Though I am not a shareholder of Apple, but I can tell you that it's very important. Now, there are certain formats, which are acceptable. Now, this is essentially a list of formats which are acceptable, but probably you should try and see what suits you best. This is for the keynote. These are the formats. But you should see to it that your videos are running before you actually go for your presentation. Inserting graphs, very important again. Avoid cramming data. We see so many people, 4 graphs, 6 graphs, and you don't know what is happening. Avoid too many annotations. We put arrows here, arrows there. We can see it on our laptop, but the people sitting in the audience can never see it. It's impossible for them to see it. So avoid too many annotations. Have bright contrasting colors as representative charts. And here you can see this chart, bright contrasting colors, comparison, and you can actually make out what is happening. And the best thing which I would say nowadays is use interactive graphs. This is available with the keynote. It's a very beautiful tool. I came to know of it only last week, but brilliant. And you can use it and it makes a huge difference, believe me. Now, the last part of your presentation is essentially the delivery, the way you speak it out. Now, 3 things are very important here. You have to know your objective, you have to know the audience to whom you're speaking, and you have to have a key message. But out of which the most is what your objective is, and that is going to define whether your paper, which you're going to present, is going to be something which is going to catch attention, or is it going to just go down the drain. So your objectives have to be very clearly defined. And the first objective when you're presenting in a competitive session is that you have to win the prize, the medal. The second thing is you have to wow your audience. You're not there to teach them. Please remember this. You're not there to teach the audience. They already know more than you. You're there to wow them. You're there to win the prize. And the third thing is you're there to establish your credentials as an academician. Right? And all the 3 things can be accomplished with a good PowerPoint or a keynote presentation. Winning the prize and medal, and some tips and tricks which I have learned over the last 15 years. Finish your presentation on time or probably half a minute before time. Practice, practice, practice. You can do it. You have a timer which is available. You can practice in the hotel room before you're going to present, in your home, wherever. Second important thing, lesser slides, number of slides, lesser matter on each slide. Make it more catchy. Third thing, underline, highlight important points. So if you have a busy slide and if you want to tell only a few points, just underline or highlight them. Flawlessly working videos, extremely important. Check, counter check, recheck. There is no way out of this. You have to keep checking them. Even there in the console, go and check it if it's running. If there is a lunch break between your paper, go there on the dais when everyone has gone for lunch and see and play it there and see if it's playing. And it makes a huge difference, believe me. Representative simple charts, only 1 per slide. Very important. Clear conclusion has to be drawn and relevance has to be told. Only if your paper is relevant will it get accepted. And you have to have a clear take-home message. Without that, the audience is not going to really respond. The next important objective is essentially to wow your audience. And how are you going to do that? Seamless talk. And you have to practice this. You can either watch English serials, because English is the medium of instruction, movies, whatever, just improve your vocabulary. The more number of words you have, the better is going to be your talk. The lesser is going to be the confusion on stage. You can always replace words. If you're not remembering one particular word, you can say the next word and get out of the situation. The second thing is judicious use of slide transitions and animations. Like I showed you, don't use animations and translations too much. because then it gets into the eye. Once in a while it's fine, when you're going to stress on a particular point, but not beyond that. The next thing is using pictures and diagrams, self-explanatory charts, very important. Eye contact with the audience. Many a times we see people either reading from here or reading from there. Eye contact with the audience is extremely important. If you don't establish eye contact, it is very unlikely that your paper will win. And you have to ask questions and seek consensus. Many a times you have certain slides where you can actually ask for a show of hands. It is possible. And when you do that, you're actually involving the audience, or you can have a research question, and if you're using the ARS, the audience response system, you can actually put in a research question, and an audience which is going to sleep will get up on your research question. And this is how you can differentiate your presentation from that of the others. And the last and probably the most important thing is establishing your credential as an academician. How can you do that? You have to present original work, because if your work is fudged, if your work is not genuine, the guy sitting in front is going to know that this is not genuine work. So don't ever think that you can fool the audience. The audience is much, much more smarter than you are. Speak with command and authority, always, but not arrogance. Extremely important, because some people can get offended. You have to preempt questions and try to have answers before questions are asked. So what are going to be the questions? The list of questions which are going to be asked to me in that time of discussion has to be known. Be thoroughly updated with literature, because if you don't do this, you'll never be able to answer the research questions which are asked to you. Answers on questions should be precise, and hence you should avoid being tangential. Many times you see, you ask a question and the person is just going tangentially. Should always avoid that. Speak to the point and answer the question which is asked to you. And last but not the least, you have to raise the bar of your talk sequentially by trying to improve your skills. This can only happen by practice, practice, and practice again. To summarize my talk, a good presentation is like Zen meditation. There are three processes. There is an input, there is a process, there is a result. And all of this actually require you to put your heart, your mind, and your soul in.